Hello again, folks, and happy holidays to you. Check out the Christmas tie. Bam. Santa parachuting. Can't remember if I wore that one before, but I got it on. Today we're going to discuss something that's really important in the world of muscles. It's called the sliding filament theory. Now, you're going to hear this over and over again when you get to college and you take physiology classes. If you go that route, you're going to hear this theory constantly. So I just want to introduce you to it and go over the basics of it. It gets really intense the further along you get in your college career. So first off, the sliding filament theory of muscular contraction is the full name. All right. Thin filaments slide past thick filaments to shorten or contract the muscle fiber, the muscle cells. So they slide past one another, expand and contract in order to contract the muscle fiber and then to relax the muscle fiber. When muscle fibers are activated, something called myosin, and I'll show you a picture of it in a second, myosin heads attached to thin filaments. You've heard of myosin ATPase, I hope, from regular bio. If you had me, you heard it. Each cross bridge, and I'll show you what those look like too, attaches and detaches, generating tension that pulls the thin filaments toward the center of what's called a sarcomere. It's very easy to mispronounce that and say sacromere because you want to flip the C and the R. It's called sarcomere, and the cell shortens. The note down here states that myofilaments themselves don't shorten, they simply slide past one another. That's why it's called the sliding filament theory. They slide past and the muscle contracts. They expand and the muscle lengthens. So it doesn't actually shorten. I want to make sure we understand that point. Here is a close-up of a sarcomere, and you'll see that when it is relaxed and they're more extended, you can see the H zone that is in here. So if I showed you a picture of two of these, and we went over this earlier on in the muscle unit, if I showed you a picture of these, you should be able to tell me whether it's a relaxed sarcomere or a fully contracted sarcomere, because the H zone is only present here in a relaxed sarcomere. It is, look down here, it's not present. Okay, there is no H zone. It's not there. The Z zones are closer, and you see here that the actins are almost on top of one another here because, like the previous slide states, they slide toward one another when being contracted. And here is another diagram saying kind of the same thing, and you see here that this open space is here. That's the band we just discussed, and when it's fully contracted, that open space is not there. These blue lines represent the myosin. You see they get closer or right on top of one another when it's contracted. So this slide is titled Events. What else is happening while the filaments are moving? And Ca stands for calcium, so calcium ions are needed for the attachment of myosin heads, or the cross bridges to actin. All right, calcium ions released from what's called a sarcoplasmic reticulum after action potentials. Electrical events pass deep into the cell through a membrane. And it goes on to say T2s will fold inward from the sarcolemma. You don't have to know that part, but you do have to know that calcium ions are needed for the attachment of myosin. And that calcium is an important ion in order for this to occur. All right, an action potential is how nerves communicate with one another. When we get to the nervous unit, you'll see that action potentials are the reason that we can feel, we can move. All right, they generate impulses and nerves talk to one another through what's something called an action potential. So it's a good term to know. So when calcium is released, it triggers the binding of myosin to actin, all right, the binding of regulatory proteins on actin filaments. So calcium is really important, not only for your bones to grow, but for all other things that include inside your cells being able to pass through membranes, and in this instance, enable the muscles to be able to contract. Your goal now is to be able to answer the bottom part of that note that says, what is the summary of the sliding filament theory? Give as many things possible as you can. This is an open-ended question on your next test. Do that question and then come back into class and we'll discuss it. Oh, one last thing. ATP provides the energy for all these sliding processes. And you should remember what ATP stands for. Adenosine triphosphate.